Woo woo. Few minutes late for our 3:30 live. So we got a new name. It's called Epic Bill Podcast Number 1 and live stream. Woo woo. Anyway, what I was told a good topic today would be like battling your mind, like the stuff I go through when I'm out there in these events or in the races or in San Francisco Bay. I was just thinking about that just recently. Does and yeah, so what I wanted to ask you guys, does anybody have any kind of event they're training for or have done where it took some extreme mental toughness to do it? Does anybody want to share anything? Yeah. Okay, I haven't heard anything yet. So, yeah, every day. Okay. Woo woo. Susan says every day of her life. Anyway, so what I think I'm just going to share like when I was in San Francisco Bay just recently. I was trying to do my 6 hour qualifying swim, which I didn't make. I did. I lasted like 4 hours one time and two and a half the next. I never made my 6 hour qualifying swim, but I remember the first hour is the worst. The first hour for me mentally when I'm doing something long is the worst because your mind is totally like I jump in that bay and it's cold and I'm swimming for that first hour and my mind's like it's trying to get you to quit like right off the bat. It's trying to get me to quit right off the bat. And I'm just, like it's like, oh, it's cold. You're never gonna last 6 hours. You don't, you're feeling weak. You're whatever. It's just negative talk. And then it's like I keep fighting it off. I'll fight it off like that first hour, and I tell myself this is what I always do the first hour is that my mind does not want to be out here. But it's like if you keep taming it and taming it and taming it, after about an hour, my mind relents and it knows that it's going to be out there for the long haul. And so the negative, it stops. All the negative noise just kind of stops. And then I'm kind of in the moment, just swimming. And, the water feels cold, but it doesn't feel freezing. And I'm just focusing like, hey, make it a half hour to the next feed. Make it a next hour, another half hour to the next feed. And that's how I kind of move my through those events. And especially if it's, I don't know, it's just, it's like that first hour is the magical hour. I have to make it through that. And I just know that whatever I'm doing, if I'm bike riding, my butt hurts the first hour. If I'm running, my feet hurt. There's always something that hurts that first hour. And then if I just, kind of mentally muscle through it, then it starts getting easier, as you go. At least you don't have your mind like totally screwing with you, trying to get you to quit, Does anybody else have any stories or want to share anything about an event that they did where they had to use their mind? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. So Jesse asked about the hours in the ocean. Yeah. The hours in the ocean is that the whole, I was throwing up out there. And, like when I was swimming, I was my fourth hour. I had a electrolyte drink. It was just a little too rich, I think. And so about the fourth hour, or after 3 hours going for 4 hours, I started throwing up. And you're just you just hope it's going to straighten out, and you keep swimming, and you just think about making it the next half hour. And if you can hopefully get that sickness under control, which I haven't been able to. But then I was talking to my friend Amy the other day, and she's the one who swam to the Fairlines, 27 mile or whatever it is, 28 miles to the Fairlines. First person ever do it. My buddy Simon made it really close before. But it's, in 43-degree water when she got close to insane cold. The coldest I've swam in is 50. But she said she throws up all the time. and she fight, she knows how to get her stomachs. She drinks a big Coke, gets her stomach settled down, and then keeps swimming. So I'm making mental notes on that because that's somebody who's a lot tougher, for sure, in the water than I am mentally. A lot tougher. And so I'm like listening to her going, okay, you got to get a Coke or get something in you that, I guess because it's bubbly or whatever, that settled down her stomach. And then she starts over from scratch after she's thrown everything up and starts doing it. I'm like, wow, okay. That's a level above what I've ever done in the past. I usually just get weaker and weaker and weaker and keep throwing up. That's what I always have done in the past. But anyway, does anybody else want to share anything that they've had? I know life is tough. It's a good one to get through too, but I'm kind of like looking for an event. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything yet. Does anybody else got another question for me about mental toughness? Yeah, so so Jessie says she does the same thing when she's running, is that she tells herself that she gets aches and pains and tells herself that it's her mind just trying to trick her to get her to quit, which is, I think a lot of us have that same thing in common. I think a lot of us have that same thing where our mind wants us to quit. It doesn't want to be out there for 6 hours in cold San Francisco Bay. It wants to be back like on a couch somewheres and warm. And so it's a total fight. In Death Valley, I remember when I was down there and when I've done those events and it's like really, really hot, like 120, 130 degrees, you're just like, it's just like, I would put, like little, like make it to that sign up the road, just make it to that sign up the road, make it, I always would put these, like goals out there that you could see and shoot for those, and I'm going to make it there no matter what. I don't think about the finish line. I think about making it to that sign. And then when I make it to that sign, I'm thinking about the next sign or that big tree up there. I'm going to make it to that big tree. And you just keep doing it. And I've had where I was riding a bike up a big hill, like a 4 or 5 hour climb. And I remember just thinking to myself, just one more pedal, just one more pedal, just one more pedal, just one more pedal. And you know what? You keep saying that, you eventually make it. And I eventually made it to the top. But so it's all these games you play with your mind. You're kind of negotiating stuff a lot of times. Like, I just need to make it to that tree. I just need to make it to that sign. I just need to, just to that next goal. So that's what I would say. And like I said, I think usually in the ocean or in the bay, it's by time, and I'll look down at my watch if I'm allowed to wear a watch. Some events you're not allowed to wear a watch, and I'll look down and I'll say, okay, I've just gone 10 minutes, 20 more to the next feed. I really don't try and think past the next feed. You know what I mean? And then what a feed is they throw your water or goos or in a container or. I was using mashed potatoes in a bag, but they throw it to you on a rope and then you eat it, you squirt it in your mouth and then they bring it back on board. But that's like, it's just a mental target to shoot for that makes it easier. Yeah, so basically, Jesse just asked, so what I'm saying is that when I'm in these events and my mind is telling me to stop, flat out to stop, if I got anything left in me, I'm going to keep fighting until I don't, you know what I mean? I'm going to, and even then I still will second guess myself, but there's like different levels, so yeah, my mind, if my mind is just doing, my mind's doing it to me, I'm going to keep battling my mind. I'm going to keep, nope, I'm not quitting. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. I don't quit. I don't quit. I don't quit. You know, I was telling this, I was telling this story the other day. I do mantras, you know, and I was swimming in the bay, and the tide turned against me, man. I got kind of faked out on the tide, and I was swimming to the opening of Aquatic Park, you know. It was, you know, it's a, you know, relatively kind of safe swim. But I was like, you know, and I'm swimming and the tide turned and I'm barely moving and I'm just battling. I'm saying, and I did my famous chant, my famous mantra, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die. And I did that all the way back to Aquatic Park and it worked. Just thinking positive, you know, so yeah, so even when my mind tells me to quit, I'm going to fight and fight and fight, you know, unless to where there's, you know, that I know I don't have anything left, you know. Does anybody else have any kind of event that they would like some coaching on, like what I would do if I was in that event? Like I told you a little bit about my bike and stuff, but you know, in running in Death Valley, like when I first started doing Death Valley, I couldn't believe how hot it was when I would get out there. You know what I mean? It would be so hot. And it's like, unless you're used to that, and you know, you'd have you know, it's 120 degrees in the air, the sun's beating on you, and then you got the pavement, the heat coming off the pavement, and it's really tough, you know, and it's excruciatingly hot, and you're sitting there and you are, you know, you're just trying to just take another step, take another step, take another step, take another step, take another step. And I know on my solo self-contained one where I'm pulling the cart and you don't have help from your crew. You have a crew there to make sure you don't die. But on that one, you know, you're thinking like, okay, 5 miles up the road, there's some shade. And I just got to make it 5 more miles and then I'll get into some shade because it's so excruciatingly hot. And I know my buddy, he told me the one year that he had, you know, he said, let's do the, you know, like you're not going to believe this. When we get up the road, there's a ditch we could sit in. You can sit in this ditch and your calves will be cool because they're in the shade. And I'm thinking like, you got to be kidding me. That's my thing from getting out of the sun is that I'm going to sit in a ditch and my calves are going to be cool. And you know what? It was weird. But when I got up to where that ditch was and I sat down, man, my calves, and I could tell that my calves were cold, you know, that they were cold. And, you know what I mean? From the sun, getting them out of the sun was huge. You know, it was huge for me getting them out of the sun. And so that was a respite, and that kept me going. That kept me going. Go for the next shade. Where's the next shade? Go to the next shade. You know, I'm just focusing on the shade. That's a crazy event, by the way. If you ever want to do something really crazy, just try and pull a cart across Death Valley without a van to get into, you know. So anyway, does anybody want to share anything else or anything else you want me to talk about? Okay. Anyway, all right. Well, I think we're going to call this one good today. So this is like a 15-minute, but this is going to be typically like our lunchtime half hour. Okay. Well, yeah, Jesse came up with something else to talk about. Okay. We're going to call this, this half hour, our lunchbox half hour. We're doing the work. I was in construction. This is like a little dinky lunchbox. I think I had a much bigger one because I was really hungry. But we're calling this the lunchbox half hour, where we do the work, we don't complain, and we just keep firing towards our goals, and we don't quit. So Jesse's asking me about my next swim. So that's what I've been trying to figure out. So I missed that. I didn't make my 6-hour swim. I made, 4, and I did 4 before, so I know I could do 4. And, and so anyway, I immediately signed up for my next time I could get on the English channel because I never quit. That's the other thing. when you're in the lunch pail half hour, we don't quit. You know, we don't quit trying, that's for sure. And so I went and I did, so I did my, I re-signed up for the channel, which you can't get on till 2027, so 2 years. And then, but I want to do something next year too, which, I've been telling, maybe it's Catalina, which is a 21-mile swim down in Southern California, which is like, I think about equally as hard as the channel, and or possibly harder, I don't know, but it's in the ballpark with the English Channel. And then and Tahoe's another thing, like a width of Tahoe. Tahoe's really tough for me. It's fresh water, it's at altitude. I've swam before up there. I tried to swim the length. I swam I think I swam 16 hours up there and made it a little more than halfways because I was still tired from my channel attempt. It was like 3.5 weeks after my English Channel my longest one where I went, 20 miles and swam almost 11 hours. And so Tahoe's tough for me. That's a tough one. But I was also told there's some swims like in Santa Barbara where maybe I could do like a 12-mile swim or, something like that, where it would be a good confidence builder. Because I do feel right now I have the fitness to probably go halfways across the channel. So 10 miles, so a 10-mile swim would be a good confidence builder. And if I did it in the next, down the road, like 9 or 10 months, I'm going to be freaking, I think I would be in English Channel shape by then, And so anyway, so yeah, it'll be, I'd love to do like a 10 to 12 miler and then also maybe a 21 miler next year, maybe 2 big swims or the width of Tahoe and something else. But, that's what I'm looking at. So anyway, any other questions? Okay. Well, I think that's good for today then. So, Lunchbox half hour signing off. Woo woo! We never quit. We bring our lunchbox to work. We probably got I used to get bologna sandwiches and so bologna and cheese. I think when I was doing construction. And so, yeah, that's what we want to do. We're lunch pail half hour. Might even have to put a hard hat on one of these days. And we just keep going after our goals and we don't quit. Woo, woo. Okay, thanks everybody. Appreciate it.